If you live in an urban or suburban environment, your single biggest gardening bottleneck is almost always ground space. A flat concrete patio or a tiny backyard can only hold a few standard pots before you run completely out of room. To bypass this limit, we have to stop thinking horizontally and start utilizing volume. By building upward, you multiply your available growing area without expanding your physical footprint. There are two highly efficient ways to do this: the heavy-duty A-Frame Trellis for large climbing vines, and the high-density stacking tower for compact crops. Setting these up requires very basic materials. For the A-frame, you'll need cattle panels, a pair of bolt cutters, and heavy-duty zip ties. For the tower, you'll need a modular stacking planter unit. Lifting your crops off the ground solves multiple problems at once. You gain square footage, improve plant health, and move your daily maintenance tasks from the dirt to eye level. A flat garden bed takes 50 square feet. Arching a cattle panel over it instantly adds 48 square feet of vertical surface. Stacking systems condense this further. A single vertical tower packs 50 plant nodes into a 4 square foot footprint. To hit those high yield numbers, you have to match your crop to the right structure. Heavy vines require the rigid steel of the A-frame, while compact greens are built for the pockets of a vertical tower. Step 1 for the A-frame is sizing the steel. Take a 16-foot cattle panel and use bolt cutters to cut the panel exactly in half. Next, lean the two halves toward each other so they meet at an apex. Secure the top rungs tightly together using heavy-duty zip ties. To anchor the structure, drive the bottom wires of each panel deep into the soil. Space the two bases about 4 to 6 feet apart to create a stable arch. If you lack steel panels, achieve this exact geometry at zero cost using thick foraged hazel branches or even upcycled wooden ladders. This specific A-frame shape creates a highly rigid foundation. It forces the structure to push back against the wind, keeping it stable even when loaded with hundreds of pounds of dense fruit. Now that the structure is built, you need the right seeds. Look specifically for varieties labeled vining, pole, or indeterminate. A common mistake is buying bush beans or determinate tomatoes. These plants are genetically programmed to stay short. They lack the biological tendrils and growth habits needed to climb. Instead, select seeds that are eager to climb, like slender Asian cucumbers, tall indeterminate tomatoes, and smaller winter squashes, weighing 3 to 5 pounds are excellent candidates. If you plant the wrong variety, the trellis sits empty. The entire vertical system relies entirely on the climbing traits of the seeds you select. In the early weeks of the season, you will need to actively train those vining plants. Gently weave the new growth through the metal grid until they begin to grab hold on their own. As the crops mature, heavier fruits, like winter squash, will start pulling heavily on the vines. To prevent breakage, wrap the fruit in a mesh sling and secure it directly to the metal frame, transferring the weight off the plant. By lifting leaves off the ground, wind passes easily through the canopy, rapidly drying the foliage after rain. Compare that to a ground-sprawling plant. Dense foliage on the dirt traps humidity and allows soil-borne fungal spores to splash onto the fruit. Suspending your crops handles mechanical load support while acting as a proactive biological defense against rot and disease. The strategy changes when you move to a stacking tower. Because of how it's shaped, a single tower creates distinct vertical microclimates that require a tiered planting approach. The top tier receives direct sunlight and drains fast, perfect for shallow-rooted lettuce. The middle tier holds consistent moisture, ideal for herbs like basil. On the lowest level, plant trailing strawberries that cascade downward without shading the rest of the tower. Once planted, you must rotate the tower slightly every few days. Leaving it static forces the shaded side to stretch for light, resulting in stunted, leggy growth. Maintenance is straightforward. You water from the top down, letting gravity pull moisture through the layers. Many towers also include a central compost tube, which feeds nutrient-rich castings directly to the root zones as it breaks down. When managed correctly, the tower functions as a gravity-fed loop that recycles kitchen waste into a consistent supply of fresh greens. By late summer, the visual contrast is striking. The A-frame trellis becomes a dense wall of climbing vines, while the tower overflows with a tight canopy of greens and herbs. Harvesting is now an upright, eye-level task. You skip the spinal strain of bending over, and you eliminate the risk of missing hidden fruit that often rots under ground-level leaves. you've successfully multiplied your square footage, improved air circulation, and secured your most vulnerable crops against soil-borne diseases and ground pests. Vertical architecture lets anyone pull an agricultural-scale harvest out of a fractional footprint. Check out the cheat sheet below to pick your system and start your build.